Yeah. So anyway, after I got divorced, I was looking for something to do on the weekends that didn't involve alcohol, right? Just trying to stay busy. So I started hiking, and one day my wife, we decided to see if we could actually run 10K, hike and run, whatever they do on the trail, like those crazy trail people. And we made it. So we're like, let's do something crazy. So we committed to running 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for a year. And we started filming a documentary at the time called 96 Hours. We were going to see if we could go from couch to 96 hours in a year. And then we almost made it, but the pandemic hit at the end. So in the meantime, first time out, man, with literally 1 month of training, I ran one of the hardest trail marathons in West Virginia. Just, I'm like, man, this ain't too bad, right? And then just bonked everything after that for a while. It took me like 8 months to be able to complete a 50K. So, yeah, we did that hardcore for a year. I got up to 100 kilometers, and that's the most I ever got.
Wow. So it was 100 kilometers is 62 miles. What was your time?
Well, we gave ourselves 52 hours to complete it for my 52nd birthday. So the night running was a complete mess, hallucinations, and I'm not doing this again. So, yeah, I don't know if you ever done any night running.
Not too much. All mine was daytime.
Yeah. So you ever heard of Gary Robbins or ever seen the Barkley marathons?
100% because the Barkley marathons are about 30 minutes from where I live.
Yeah. So Gary Robbins, the guy that they did a little documentary on him. He was my running coach for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I was like all in. I'm like, I need something different to do other than just powerlifting, right?
Well, I get that because I think we all get burnt out. We've been doing powerlifting our entire lives. So at some point, especially when you go through a transformation like you did, you lost so much weight where I know your strength had to fall through the floor. I mean, how many pounds did you lose total?
Yeah, this is something I wanted to talk to you about because I was talking to Dave McConey about losing bench press strength when I lost weight. My bench, like at its peak, was probably around 430 when I
Okay.
was 346. And then after losing 100 pounds, man, I remember hitting 315 for a single. It was like so humiliating. It was such a big drop off. So he said, I remember in one of the clips he had that after you stopped, we can get in that because I don't know your whole story, but you were at 315 after you kind of got off everything. Is that correct?
Yes. So the lowest it dropped, I mean, at a peak, like on Trend, I was at about a 485 bench. There's a video of that one. That was in the gym. My best meet bench was 463 in competition. And then when I came off everything, it dipped down to 315. So
It's crazy because I was pretty close to 430. You were like what do you say, 485?
yeah, 485 is the most I've ever hit.
So just to set the table a little bit, I made a YouTube video, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, where I said most lifters will never hit 315. And it wasn't a negative video, right? It was just to kind of encourage people, here's how to improve your odds. So someone got a hold of the clip of me saying, just a short clip of you'll never hit 315. They use it in TikTok videos. And everybody's like trying to make me look like I'm some super negative guy, like you'll never hit 315. Everyone in the world is like, I can hit 315, and then here we are, two guys that we're well into the fours. We're struggling to hit 315.
Yeah, but I talked about this with a few other people where it's like 315 by general gym going status is an elite bench. If you go to any commercial gym and you're like you bench 315, you are in the top fifth, top 95th percentile. You are at an elite level. A 315 bench is elite among the general population of gym goers. It's just we see this online where we're always looking at Instagram videos and we see massive lifts, and that skews the perception. So I've made videos like, guys, 315 bench, 405 squat, and 495 deadlift are pretty much elite on a general level. That's going to put you at the strongest in any gym you go to outside of like very niche powerlifting circles.
So just to backtrack for those that are watching and listening, I think the first time we met, Pete, was at a UPA meet. You were being coached by Paul Carter, and I used to do a lot of the UPA meets. The Lilla Bridges were there, and Marshall Johnson and guys like that. And back then powerlifting wasn't as on fire as it is now. It didn't have as many lifters, right? And people kind of, like, at those UPA meets, man, there's not a lot of guys benching over 315. That's kind of a really big, kind of upper echelon, meet. And there's not a lot of guys benching over 315 or even pulling over 600.
Yeah, it's not a normal thing, but everyone thinks that their numbers that they're personally hitting are subpar because of what they see online. You see the freaks all the time posting constantly, and everyone judges themselves based on that. Whereas if they really took a step back, looked at it objectively, you could roll into most of the gyms in America, and if you were hitting those numbers, you would be at the definite top percentile. So I just think people need to have a better understanding of the whole thing we always hear about, where social media is not real life. It's not, guys. It's not like your numbers are awful just because there's people out there who are at a freak level, and they're most definitely on anabolic steroids as well, when most of the audience, like 90% of my audience, is natural. So it's like these comparisons need to be looked at from a more objective standpoint.
So I want to take people back a little bit. Some people watching aren't going to know you because, you and I come from, I've been doing this crazy world where I'm, was at Tiger Fitness for a while. So for the guys that don't know you, you were back in the, I don't know how many years ago it was, you were just pulling these crazy deadlifts, and you kind of caught fire on the internet, social media.
Yeah, it was about 5 years ago, I want to say, was the peak of my strength. And, I was taking everything. I've been very open about, very transparent about what I did. I took plenty of anabolic steroids over a 9-year period. From age 20 is when I started taking them to 29. I'm now 31 years old. I'll be 32 years old in about 3 months here, or actually a few more months than that. In August, I'll be turning 32. So I've been off anabolic steroids and testosterone for the last 2.5 years. But back then, yeah, I was taking everything, tons of tren, high doses of test, pretty much tried everything you could think of. And just posting my lifts up. I've been posting them up for about a decade now. And just things were progressing at such a big rate. I got signed by Animal for a sponsorship, and just, went to all the big meets, competed against the best guys. Deadlift blew up, got it up to 920 pounds in the gym, and in a meet 871. And it was a whirlwind. It was opportunity after opportunity, and that's kind of what got my name out there even more than the basement days, which is why you see the washer and dryer behind me is just kind of paying homage to the basement days of when I lifted in my basement as a teenager, as a kid coming up. And it was kind of became a meme with the washer and dryer behind me.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I noticed when it came on video. I'm like looking like this is like old school Pete, what's going on. But then I kind of got it, before you even said it. You're from Wisconsin, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm from Wisconsin as well. I got my Wisconsin, sweatshirt on. But I remember the thing I remember most about you. We're both from Wisconsin. I love the deadlift, but it wasn't your numbers so much. It was the fact that you were just in a crappy gym like me, like a crappy basement area. But it was like the mental, your mental state, like. I think we kind of lift in that same state, probably not exactly in that same state, but back then when you were lifting, like for me, there was a lot of I don't know. For me, it was rage, insanity, emotion, just a lot of things going on. Where was your mindset back then? Because you can see guys, some guys just step up and they pull, and there's like, it's just like, man, they just like pulled 900 smo, and I didn't even see 1 ounce of rage. But when you pulled, it was like this crazy ritual that it was just otherworldly.
Yeah, I mean, in the basement days, it was that teenage angst of just felt like I had a chip on my shoulder and I didn't have really any friends. I kind of hung out by myself. Girls weren't interested in me, that sort of thing. So I wanted to make something of myself. I wanted to prove to people that I was going to be somebody. And so I found success in lifting. I realized I was pretty good at it. And that's what I really enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing my strength go up first and foremost, and then the physique changes. And that's what pushed me all those years. That's what kind of really led to my biggest numbers. And even, I don't talk about this a lot, but it's similar to you where when I was 23, I'd barely been married long, but I went through a divorce basically after a real short relationship. It was rushed and all that. And I had a lot of anger and hostility afterwards, given the situation. I was pretty depressed. And so at that point in time, that was when I like hopped on Tren. And over the next couple of years, my numbers just blew up because I felt so much like anger. It was just like driving me all those years because over the situation. And it really motivated me to hit the numbers I hit at my peak, where it was a 2,100 pound total, and all that. So it's definitely been the negative times in my life, or when I've been counted out when something bad has happened, that have driven me to my success. It's almost harder now when life is fairly stable and it's not like that. You have, a roof over your head, your bills are getting paid. Life is decent. That's when it's hard to find that motivation. I can't get to that same level that I did. But throughout all those periods of time, it was the negative outcomes, the difficulties in life that propelled me to my best outcomes, my best accomplishments. So it's harder now. It's not there now. Now I lift calm, and it's part of that's like not being on testosterone and having low test. My testosterone levels are fairly low. The last one was like 360 nanograms per deciliter, and it just makes it to where you're not super aggressive and you're not trying to tear it up in the gym and all that. So all this plays a role.
Yeah, I mean, like, people often ask me why I got into ultra running, and part of it I realized, like, when I showed up, I'm like this 240-pound slab of whatever, dude, and they're like, everybody discounted me, right? And that kind of tapped into that old powerlifting rage where, like, I'm gonna fucking I'm like, I use that as motivation, like, so you'd start off and you'd go slow, and then they're like, this guy's gonna die, and then like 50 kilometers later they all quit, and I'm still running like a turtle, but I kind of use that in ultra running just as kind of the fuel, that same kind of fuel.
What was the craziest thing about ultra running for you? Was it just consistency? Was that the key to it? Was it going out slowly? Was it how'd you get through all that?
I would say the biggest thing in ultra running that kind of hooked me was, like, I never found a limit. Like, I never found the end. Like, no matter where you start out, you're like, I'm going to run 2 hours, and then you run 2 hours. Like, 2 hours to me when I was a teen is like impossible, and then all of a sudden it's 4 and it's 6 and it's 12. And then I did a 52-hour run, obviously with sleeping and breaks, for my 52nd birthday, but it was just never an end. There's just never an end to what you could accomplish in that arena. Certainly there was a lot of battle scars, and a lot of big lessons learned, running through snow and mud, getting acclimated to running in snow all the time and running in mud all the time. When you first start out, you're like, this is awful, I'm never doing this again. And then 2 years later, you don't even notice it, So I don't know. The whole thing for me was I just never found an end. And even to this day, I'm not really running right now, but the allure of going back and starting up and running again while I'm, lifting is still there. Cause, when you never find the end, you're kind of curious, how far you can go.
So you were saying you were running for like 2 hours, 5 days a week for 2 years?
Yeah, it was probably about 3 years. We would do like 2 hours a day, and then on Saturdays we do a long run. We just go out and see how far we could go. We do whatever we wanted. Sometimes we'd run a marathon. Sometimes it's just 3 hours.
And
So
you, how much were you weighing throughout this whole process?
and a lot, a lot. Like I started, I was at like I got down to 238
Okay.
at my peak, and then uh we started running, and you're running 12 hours a week, right? So you're just eating and you're not thinking about it. And I slowly gained like 20 pounds. So at the peak I was like 268.
Good
And
Lord.
I
So
didn't
you
even
were the heaviest guy.
yeah. And everybody's like, you're gonna poke your eye out, you're gonna shoot your eye out, kid, right?
Yeah.
Because of my weight. They're all like, you're gonna get injured. But the thing I found, it was like my joints and connective tissue were so bulletproof from all the years of lifting. I never got injured, never tweaks, niggles, nothing. You know, it was like, obviously I wasn't fast, but running on a trail, just never got injured.
Wow, that's crazy. What lessons did you learn while you were ultra running, trail running? Like what did it teach you and how have you applied those to like your life now?
Man, that's a good question. Um, what did it teach me? I think it added a degree of uh, I think a lot of the things it taught me were um, just spending so much time with yourself. I don't know if it so much taught me stuff, but you work out a lot of things, right? It's just you. I didn't have any music. I didn't, it was just me in the woods. And I don't know. I don't know if it taught me so much as it gave me the opportunity just to work things out in life and let things go. And it was always a good period where ideas were coming. It was like creativity and workout ideas and, just things like that. So I don't know if it taught me so much as just provided a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I feel like so much of that, you know, long distance running is mental. It's like you're learning mental toughness. It gives you that chance to kind of clear your brain. It's just a different thing too than like we talked about with lifting, where I mean, you've probably been lifting your whole life similar to me. Then you get to a point where you've done a million powerlifting meets and you've done a maxing all the time. And you're at a point where your strength isn't at the same level and you're looking for something new, some kind of new challenge. And I feel like that's a natural progression because in the sense, long distance running is much healthier. You're going to have a much healthier cardiovascular system. You're going to, it's going to be something that's going to keep you in good shape and all that. So was that just kind of like a natural progression after like the years of the heavy lifting?
Yeah, for me, like I for me there was like limits of what I could do when I wasn't eating myself to death with weights. Um, like the more I ate, the stronger I got. That was kind of my drug, right? And I reached a point where that was going to kill me. So you kind of I kind of, just hit a wall with lifting. I can only do so much. There's a lot of talk like in the natural world online, like, you know, guys think they can get bigger if they try harder. There's no limits. Man, I've been at limits for 20 years, right? Like shit ain't going up anymore. The lifts aren't going up anymore. The muscle's not packing on anymore. There's no corner to turn. So it was just it was a new corner, a new outlet to see how far you can go. And like I said, I never saw the end yet. So
Well, that's the thing too. Guys don't realize just because you're natural doesn't mean it's healthy necessarily when you're trying to eat as much as possible and trying to gain more weight. I mean, I've even felt it recently when I got up to 240 on nothing, not even testosterone. And I just didn't feel that healthy. I noticed my resting heart rate was very elevated. I just would get out of breath and, doing nothing. And I just didn't feel healthy compared to, a more reasonable weight, dropping 15, 20 pounds down to like 220, 225 doing cardio. So, but I've noticed the same thing. It's like, if I want to get stronger, I have to eat a bunch. I have to gain weight. And that doesn't really go hand in hand with being healthier, because then your biomarkers on your blood work are worse and your resting heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up. So it's been this kind of push-pull struggle with wanting to be strong, but at the same time, every time I've tried to get strong or been very strong in the past, I've been much more unhealthy. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm trying to find that balance.
Now, how do you handle, and I'm sure you're pretty adept at handling it, right now, but like the pressure on social media or from your audience to do circus acts? How are you handling that right now? That has to be like that. There has to be some pressure.
Yeah, this is something I've struggled with big time over the last few years, especially when I came off everything, because I thought, who's going to pay attention to me? Who's going to care when I'm not hitting crazy lifts anymore? And when there's all the newcomers hitting massive lifts, and you're doing nothing, and you've come off everything. And it was a hard choice to make, where I was like, I have to go this way or I have to go this way. And it's almost like taking the road less traveled, that poem, because I knew a lot was at stake. And I'm like, am I going to be able to sustain my coaching business? Am I going to be able to sustain what I'm doing now without being the guy who's lifting all these weights? So at various times, I've even thought, like, I need to be at the peak of my game or no one's going to care. And it's just recently, probably within the last 6 months, that I've started to come to terms with, people will still, enjoy hearing from me, the messages, the lessons I've learned, without having to be on my A game, without having to be at those levels I once was. And it's been scary, because you think you're going to lose it all. You think no one's going to care about you when you're not deadlifting 900 pounds and hitting crazy lifts. But I've started to be more okay with that, and I've started to see that that's not necessarily the case. So it's getting better to where I'm having a better time being like, okay, I can be healthy. I don't have to be this crazy strength freak anymore. I can be more balanced and healthy and go a different way, and I'll still be okay.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of room in this industry for guys that are just stay sincere and stay grounded. There's a lot of craziness in the fitness industry, and a guy like you that just comes, straight, that just is real. There's just tons of room for a guy like you, just to come on and speak the truth. You're not, there's guys that bring the circus acts in YouTube fitness with their content or with their voice or with all kinds of things. And I'm not putting them down, but there's such room in this industry for just guys that are real. And you just strike me as that type of guy. I watch some of your videos, and I can, you got a lot to offer. So I want to backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind. Like, I think the last time I interacted with you, last time I saw you was like at the Arnold, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And a lot has changed. What changed with you? When did, what led to you kind of setting that lifestyle aside and moving in a different direction?
It was a few different things. Looking back at the last few years, it's kind of wild, because my strength essentially peaked around age 26 when I was hit a 2100 total. And shortly thereafter, a few months later, Dallas McCarver passed away. And I'm sure everyone's aware of that. He was also 26. We were at the same gym training. We were at 2 different gyms in 2 different states at the same time. How weird is that? So when I was in Lexington, Kentucky, we were both at Lexington Athletic Club training. He was being coached by Matt Jansen. And then when we both moved to Tennessee at the same time. Matt Jansen did as well. And we were all in the Knoxville area, and we both trained at Maxed Out Gym. So I would see him all the time. And it was crazy, because he was deadlifting pretty much as me as a bodybuilder. And he was throwing up the 200-pound dumbbells for 10 reps on incline, just crazy stuff. But I didn't think anyone could pass away that young, like 26 years old, massive heart attack. Didn't think it was possible. So that made me kind of rethink things a little bit. And at the time, I was getting more serious with my then girlfriend, now wife. And she was like, look, you got to stop the trend. The trend made me paranoid, completely unstable, just a complete nutcase. Compared to any other anabolic steroid, it was the true steroid that gave me roid rage. Nothing else did. I was out of control. So she basically said, stop the trend. You can take whatever you want besides that. And really, trend is what got me to the peak strength. Without it, I could never quite get back to that level. That's how strong it was. So at that point, the next few years, I cleaned things up a little bit, came off trend, ran some other things that were much more, much milder. Got like a calcium coronary artery score done to see how much plaque buildup was in my coronary arteries after Dallas passed away. And there was actually a small bit, very small bit, but there shouldn't be any. And then it was a natural progression from there where it was like you said, even on steroids, without Trent, I wasn't at the same level, and it was getting hard to hit PRs. Like PRs were not coming. I was starting to feel beat up, my joints, my back I started having disc pain. My body started to kind of fall apart from all the years of lifting because I've been lifting since 14 and I'd been on anabolics since 20. So I just said, all right, well, this is getting hard and I'm not feeling it. And at that point, it was kind of like do or die. Like if we want to have a kid, we got to do it now. And so I came off everything to have a kid. Kind of made the decision quickly to try to make it happen. And we had one. My wife got pregnant 7 months later after I came off. But at that point, I was off, I just decided to kind of stay off from a health standpoint because the interest wasn't there to push my body to that level anymore. And I just felt like I needed to be more responsible at that point, having a child and having a wife and, being a provider. It's like I can't be selfish to the point where I'm just blasting all the time, trying to get stronger for the sake of fame and fortune and eventually pass away at a young age, not being there for them. Because I've seen in the industry countless deaths where it's just a reminder every single freaking year of like how fleeting life is and how we can't take things for granted because so many guys, Boston and Boston Lloyd and stuff, he was 29 and on others, they're just passing away. And it's like a wake up call. It's like, well, it's great being strong, but is it worth taking the decades off your life? And you really have to start to have this conversation with yourself. You have to have an exit plan. So when I was 29, 30, I was like, it's time to somewhat pivot to a different route. And like I said, I was terrified of losing my following. I was like, my following, my identity has been the numbers I can lift. So what are people going to think when I'm not the crazy guy throwing weight around, hitting massive lifts? Are they going to even care? And it was terrifying, but here I am now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that not only comes with age, but comes with age in the lifting industry. I've seen, you're familiar with Bud Jeffries, I'm sure. Bud, I was supposed to have on a podcast. He couldn't get his audio connected. So we sat there for like an hour just talking. I met with Bud before and, he passed away. I met with his son, Noah, before he passed away. And, guys like Jerry Ward and all these guys, you spend time with them. You just see them, moving on, man. It's like it makes you think a little bit about your decisions and just how much is enough. Do you struggle with any lasting injuries or any complications from the heavy years, or are you in pretty decent shape?
I'd say overall I'm in decent shape, but I mean my right hip's a little impinged, a little busted up. I can still squat though. Mainly the back issues. If I don't go crazy on deadlifts all the time, they don't flare up too bad, the disc issues, but from time to time those flare up. Outside of that, my knees feel amazing. So I'd say mainly just the back, but it's something I can control, especially if I'm not trying to push things to the limit constantly anymore, which is really not the case. I'm not trying to go as insane anymore on my lifts.
So how many years straight were you in the pit? And in the pit, I mean like, um, uh, how many years were you going hard and heavy with the iron?
I would say 15 years, from 14 to roughly 29 is like I was pushing it even when so those were the years I got on stuff at 20, but even before that in the basement videos, it was all intensity all the time. So 15 years of mileage, which is why people say, well, how are you peaking at 26, or how is your body having issues in your late 20s? But it's like, guys, I started at 14 and everything from the beginning was maxing out constantly, pushing as heavy as possible. Like that's a lot of mileage, regardless of your age. So just an earlier start.
I found out about powerlifting, I think around 2006, 2007. I never heard of it. Now I'm working in a factory and some guy's talking about West Side and box squats and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I kind of, you know, discover the world of powerlifting at that point. And I think from then till like 2007 till like 2019, 12 years, it was nonstop, ridiculous, insane every day, every year training. And I don't really know how to frame that for people. But when you get to like it's got to be like an NFL career or a Major League Baseball career where it just never ends. The circus never ends. And, what was that like for you just being in that? Like, what did it take mentally to sustain that kind of focus and drive for over a decade?
It came pretty naturally because I felt so much negativity all the time, especially on the PEDs. And I mean, my life in the gym, I was like really strong, but my life outside of the gym was a disaster. So it's just I've been through these phases where it's like you're at your strongest, but your personal life is a wreck, and it's completely flawed because the negativity or turmoil in your personal life can help drive you in the gym. And that's what often would happen. So it would come naturally, coupled with the PEDs like Tren, which generally just puts you in a negative mindset. It was pretty easy. I was amped up all the time. I was always like in and on. My blood pressure was probably ridiculous, probably like 170, 80 all the time. Um, and I was just always amped up. I was always aggressive. I always was angry. It was like constantly being angry 24 hours a day, or on edge or irritable. And it was no way to live. And it was good at the time. And even like, and it wasn't all PEDs, guys. It was like that. I had that chip even before. It's what drove me. But training, like you said, at that level where you're amped up constantly is very taxing and draining. And it's not super sustainable long term. Like, I wouldn't want to train like that now, even if I could, because it's so draining. I'm calm when I lift now. I'm completely calm. I can't get to that point where I'm like so focused and aggressive. It's almost impossible. But it's draining. It was easy for me at the time. It's what led to all my biggest lifts. I was always like in that kill mode all the time, 100 miles an hour, aggression. But you look at like your life around you crumbling or whatever in various circumstances, and you're like, wow, maybe I shouldn't just be so solely focused on the weights and throw everything else away.
So, would you say now I know your training's different, but for me, I train completely different on bench. I never really go over 225. Sometimes I just see how many sets of 10 I can do. Sometimes I just, do 20 or something, just nothing crazy intense or heavy. But I enjoy my training and I don't feel the need to like prove anything. It feels good to have strength, have a reasonable degree of strength compared to like the average individual. But I enjoy my training. I'm not taking selfies and swolfies and videos of everything I do like 24 hours a day. So I can get kind of back to my roots. Are you enjoying your training now just in a different way?
Yeah, training is different in the sense there's way more bodybuilding, hypertrophy type work, a lot more machine work, a lot more pump work. Where my whole life, it's been a focus on get the big three, the squat, bench, and deadlift as strong as possible. That's been the sole goal. So everything revolved around that. I didn't give a crap what my biceps looked like or anything like that. For the most part, assistance movements were not as much of a heavy focus. It was just, if an assistance movement would help those lifts, I'd hammer it. But outside of that, physique wise, there was never a goal. Now I'm like, I'm going to take some time to focus on really building up my biceps and doing tons of lateral raises to build up my delts. And I don't want to have to go balls to the wall heavy all the time. And there's certain periods where I'll sign up for a meet and I'll really focus on pushing my strength and my deadlift, and I'll eat more. And then I'll go through a phase for a few months where I'm just more light. I lighten up my body weight and I'm bodybuilding, and I'm much more chill with the training. It's kind of like you said, you have a certain weight that you throw on the bar and you knock reps out with. And my training time, having a 1-year-old and having a gym to run and having a million clients to work with in the gym and online, it's like, because I've probably 40 guys online I work with full time. And then I have a number of people I train in person at the gym. I get here at the gym at 5 a.m. I close up at 7 p.m. And it's like I'm busy all day long. So my training sessions have to be short. They have to be an hour. I have to knock them out, get it done, get in and out, be efficient. So whereas the training sessions back then, when I had nothing else to do, we're looking at it would be 4-hour training sessions. So it just really depends.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I coach full time online, and my day is like 12 hours sitting here, and I enjoy what I do. It's nice to be able to do that for a living, but it's harder to squeeze in my personal training. Like sometimes I can go 4 or 5 days and realize I haven't lifted. It's like I haven't found the time to lift. I want to talk to you a little bit about the coaching side of things because I coached at powerlifting meets, and you've been at enough powerlifting meets, and at meets we're around guys that know how to squat and bench and dead. And online you're used to seeing guys that know how to squat and dead. One thing that coaching really opened my eyes to was the fact that like the deadlift and the squat are far more challenging to teach and for the average lifter to grasp to the point where they don't grind themselves down than I expected. What is your experience with that? Moving to training people and teaching in person and dealing with them on the squat and deadlift.
Yeah, I mean, these two lifts are highly individualized as far as mechanics, as far as how someone's built. I mean, there was just a lifting vault video posted of Tyson Fury deadlifting, and the presumption was that his back was rounded and it was bad form. Whereas I look at the mechanics of him, and he's a very tall guy. I want to say he's like 6'7" or something, maybe even taller. I don't know. But taller lifters with very long legs and very long femurs have to start with a very high hip position on deadlift to where they're naturally going to look almost stiff-legged, rounded when they pull. So I look at that lift. Everyone else is like, oh, his back's rounding. It's terrible form. And I look at it and I'm like, that's how he has to pull based on his mechanics. So that's just an example of like, that's going to be a completely different looking pull than someone with a shorter torso and shorter legs. So you have to look at these things when you're basing the starting position for a deadlift and even a squat. There is no set way to squat. Some guys have to go much wider with their feet based on where their femurs attach and how long they are. Some guys can go in close with their feet pointed more ahead. There's variations of this. Generally, your body will kind of help tell you where the most comfortable position is with that sort of stuff. So you're going to see a high degree of variance, but people try to box everything into almost a one-size-fits-all. And there are principles that can apply. Like I feel the most confident, obviously, coaching deadlift because I just feel like I know every little thing, like the back of my hand almost. But it's just there's a lot of variation. It's just everybody's different.
Yeah, in the squat, like you have to know your stuff to teach the squat online because you're looking at videos and some things your clients can't always understand why you're making adjustments, but you can see it, right? They need to open up their stance just an inch each side or open up their toe angle or whatever. But What are your thoughts? Like, we went through this period of lifting where everything became super minimal and guys were doing like the strong lifts and the starting strength, and you had noobs just doing this squatting hell, and a lot of times, before they even had a chance to really understand if they were squatting properly. What are your thoughts on those types of programs? And was that the right direction, for the whole strength training world to go, to toss all these noobs on all these big monster compound lifts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is good now that there's access to coaching and such from people who have done it and have the experience. But I think Bromley's kind of touched on this stuff too, where some of the beginning programs, they're decent if you're starting out. I mean, Ripto's program and like 531, those are solid programs if you're just kind of getting into it and looking to keep it simple and looking to just make basic gains and straightforward gains. And I mean, it's almost like we're so used to seeing guys in like the football teams with the quarter squats and all that, to where it's just a complete disaster of a lift. But most people who get into strength, into powerlifting, into strength training, have a general understanding like squat to depth and all that. So I actually feel like those programs are decent for just getting your feet wet and kind of getting kicked off with everything, so long as there's that basic foundational understanding of form. But I still, I'll get people who have been lifting for years and they're doing things incorrectly. And that's kind of where the coaching realm comes in, where it can help you refine things, get you ready for competition, accountability, better prepare you.
So I want to backtrack and talk a little bit about nutrition, and then I'm going to have to hop off, and I'll let you go because it's almost 1 o'clock. But when you were at your peak, did you have structured nutrition? Is your nutrition better now, or was it a little bit more Wild West back then?
Oh, back then it was completely Wild West. I've experimented with higher protein intake, more strict eating, and it didn't seem like, as far as strength is concerned, didn't seem like there was a massive difference in my strength levels from eating clean food to eating dirty food. So long as I was getting in enough calories, it felt like my strength was going to go up, and I didn't see a huge difference. I always felt like it was more of a physique difference based on eating cleaner as opposed to more dirty food. Whereas now that I'm more health focused, I'm not trying to lift crazy heavy anymore. My diet's much cleaner. But I've always kind of felt like protein intake has been a little blown out of proportion as far as how much you actually need to get stronger. I feel like with a baseline protein intake of 150 grams and plenty of calories, you're going to get stronger no matter what. It's really the calories that I always felt like got me stronger. So I was eating whatever I wanted. It was just a free for all. A lot of ground beef, but at the same time there'd be the classic rice-a-roni, pie, whatever, anything to get me stronger, to get those calories in, was what seemed to make the most difference. Whereas now it's like I'll have one cheat day a week and then I try to keep everything healthy on the other days. I'll partake in fasts between 24 and 48 hours to kind of create that autophagy in the cells, regenerate the cells, just be healthier in general. It's like my mindset has gone from 100% strength focused for so many years to more of a health focused standpoint.
Right.
That's the big difference.
It's funny you mentioned 150 grams of protein, because like that's kind of the red line or the goal I give to clients. It's like I never was a macro micro manager. I always kind of got around 150-ish. And I'm the same way. Like, from strength, I found it calories, and then your protein kind of came naturally from the calories. But I never found any benefit eating more or eating any less protein, for that matter.
I did not either. I mean, people like to beat on the protein thing and how important it is, but I just never saw a significant difference from simply just getting enough calories in compared to getting high protein. You just have to get enough calories in. If you're eating a lot, you're going to get stronger. But then obviously it's the downside. This is the tough balancing act where it's like your blood pressure goes up and your blood work is not as good. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen that. Like, what was your peak weight that you hit, body weight?
346. So that was the heaviest. That was where I weighed at my last UPA weigh-in, and I might have been heavier than that. I might have been over 350. It's never weighed in.
What made you then decide to be like, okay, I'm going to drop 100 pounds? What was the breaking point?
Well, I went to a UPA meet in like November, and I coached, and I had kind of lost the bug for 6 to 8 months before that, and that kind of rekindled things. And so they had a meet in April, so I had like from January to April to train, and I gained 35, 40 pounds in those in like 100, 120, no, maybe 150 days. My strength went crazy. I've never did that before. My total was up to like 1900 from like maybe 1670. My
Wow.
bench was going up. I was squatting over 600 multiple times a week. That had never happened before. I was like peaking like a champ. I was like, this is going to be 1900. I might even hit 2000. And a week before the meet, I was sitting. I took my daughters to a daddy date. We were going to go to Pizza Hut buffet, of course, and then to a movie. And I'm sitting at the Pizza Hut, and all of a sudden, I had Charlie horses in every muscle of my body, every muscle. Like I couldn't move a little bit without getting a chest cramp, a hip cramp, an ab cramp, and it was nonstop. It didn't go away. And it took me 15 minutes to walk to the counter at the Pizza Hut. I finally got into the car into the movie theater. I didn't want my daughters to know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think I'd be able to get out of the seat at the movie theater because the cramps were unbearable, unrelenting, and every muscle. So, long story short, I talked to a buddy. I realized I had really bad fatty liver disease, and that my liver was not processing minerals. So everything was just a cramping nightmare. And he said, look, if you don't change the heart's a muscle, it's going to cramp. And it struck me what that was. Anyway, long story short, I went on to the UPA meet, bombed out my first squat at 600, which I'd just done 1,000 times before. And, the next day I started running on the treadmill. Like I went to complete animal-based, plant-based, didn't count calories, just real foods 100% for a full year. And the weight just came off crazy. I felt immediately better and never want to go back to that.
Do you have like blood work from then to now? Like, I wonder how that's changed, how some of the biomarkers look.
Um, I remember having blood work back then, and my test levels were like ridiculously low, like 178. And I never had. I worked at home, so I never checked my blood pressure. But I couldn't even walk to the mailbox without needing to take breaks. So it was bad health. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, like, how old are you now? And when was that?
That was like nearly 10 years now, about age 46. I'm 55 now, and 55, other than aches and pains, the years of running taught me that, like, the crazy things you can do in your 50s, and if you take care of yourself, how amazing you can feel. So
What advice would you give to someone my age, like 30, 30s, 31 years old? What would you say?
um the biggest thing I would say is youth masks the punishment we put ourselves through. And you're going to wake up one day, and every time you eat Doritos or pizza, your stomach's going to ache. You're going to realize how much it impacts your sleep. You're going to realize as you age how all the things you did uh, were impacting you, but because you were younger, it was being masked. And it's like a brick wall. You're constantly chipping away at it. And then before you know, the wall has lost its integrity. And you need to take it seriously when you're young. You need to take it seriously, especially in this day and age of obesity. Um, if I could go back, I would tell myself never to do. I would tell myself not to do powerlifting. I would tell myself to, man, if I could go back to when I was 40, I'd tell myself to take up ultra running and to balance it with muscle building and, just get a better balance. The 20 years I did muscle building, I felt good. It was only when I started chasing crazy strength that, it started to beat me up, and I started to do reckless things like abusing my body with food. You abused your body with drugs, the same kind of thing.
Yeah, when you take things to like too far of an extreme, it definitely tends to shift to a negative light. I mean, now, what do you think the future holds for you? What are your goals? What's the game plan? What do you want out of life?
My 56th birthday is coming up. I want to, for the first time in my life, uh, be in peak shape. Like, I want to be able to do 225 by 20 on bench at 56, be able to run a marathon, and have some some semblance of abs for the first time in my life. Just to have everything in kind of the same. It's kind of some congruence, everything to kind of align up at the same time, not just for myself, but to kind of show people, you know, if you just take care of yourself and eat right, you can really do crazy things for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think that's a shift that I've made. We're very on similar trajectories there as far as trying to find that health now, because I think it's a natural progression, like I said earlier, where you go through the phase of trying to get extremely strong at all costs and that sort of thing. And then later on, you realize the fragility of life and you try to be as healthy as possible to kind of make up for it and try to get as many years as you can and try to take care of yourself. Has that changed? Like, how many kids do you have?
I have two daughters. They're both over 18.
How has that impacted you as far as that goes? Like, has that made it to where you look at them and their futures and you want to be there and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and you also want to model for people, proper living, not just physically, but also mentally. Like, you weren't in the perfect mental state. I wasn't in the perfect mental state. And these days, I take my mental health more seriously. Not that it's perfect, but like, we don't talk a lot about mental strength and mental health. And I think if anything, right now, my mental health is a greater priority than my physical health. And my physical health certainly is a priority. But just learning to be happy, enjoy who you are, enjoy life, not pressure yourself, not let people bother you, and the mental strength aspects of things, like testing yourself, adventuring, seeing what's out there, trying new things, fully living, taking advantage of the breath we have, and fighting the voices in your head, that tell you you can't do anything or you're not capable enough. Just learning to set them aside and just move forward. That's important. And like, when I see younger guys, the mental health and mental strength side of things is more important, because all good things come from that. So if I can teach that or model that to my daughters, I think I've done something pretty important.
That's pretty good. I mean, I think, I want the best life possible for my daughter. She's only one, and I want to set the tone, the same kind of thing where you set the example, you put her in a proper setting, you take care of yourself. And if you do all that, you take care of yourself, the rest kind of falls into place. As you said, it all starts up here with the brain. The brain tells you, or you tell yourself, if you can or can't do something. It's all up here between the ears. So there has to be that belief, there has to be that initiative, and then the rest falls into place. So I'm in the same boat. Obviously I have a 1 year old and you're a little further along, but it's really interesting to see the similarities, the parallels.
Well, I'll just end with this. The concept that love is an action, self-love is an action as well. We need to act and show people we care and show ourselves that we care by acting. And when it comes to folks that have a hard time making a lifestyle change, they have to kind of remind themselves that self-love is doing the right thing. And it's hard, but there needs to be a reminder, that we can say we love ourselves, but until we're actually putting some plans and structures in place and holding ourselves accountable, we're not really fully there yet. So
Yeah, that's really good. That's spot on. We'll wrap it up here. And
I got one quick question before I go, Pete, and I have to go, so I'll get in trouble with my wife. But I haven't been in Wisconsin a long time, man. I don't miss it. How about you? You missing the cheese state or no?
I mean, I like Tennessee more as far as the weather, the values, that sort of thing. But I think I miss some aspects of it. Just winter gets pretty long with the snow. We get almost no snow here.
Right.
And it's completely different. My parents are moving down here in about 2 months from Wisconsin. So all my ties to Wisconsin will be gone. My sister's out in Colorado. My parents will be down here. I'm going to try to make it up there one more time before they move so I can see the basement and all that one more time. But
right.
It's crazy. I might try to go up there and link up with the Wisconsin strength coach too. We'll see for the football team.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't miss the winters and I don't miss the bugs. That's for sure. I don't know where just by you, but here, like I've seen like one mosquito in like 7 years and like one tornado in 7 years. So it's a nice change.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite a bit different. It's a lot warmer over here.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you joining me. It was a pleasure catching up with you and just shooting the crap with you. So stay healthy, man. Stay focused, and all good things your way.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was awesome speaking to you. Awesome catching up. I know it's been a while. We'll do it again soon. Okay.
All right, man. You have a good rest of your weekend.
Yep. You too, Steve.